All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. We're a little late, had some technical difficulties, but that's the coconut wireless, as Flavio mentions in the chat. But yeah, this is going to be a fun one. I know Aaron, he's in the school community with us. Kind of, he was at the One Rental at a Time event also. But Charlie's here, so Charlie is maybe a little new to my guest. So maybe Charlie can quickly introduce himself and how does him and Aaron know each other, I guess.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Charlie Cameron, Air Force veteran and founder of the Raw Room Assisted Living Mastermind and podcast, number one podcast on assisted living, and just stoked to be here today.
Cool. And how do you and Aaron, I guess, know each other, I guess?
Aaron was one of the first test dummies to join our mastermind when we launched late August, and we became fast friends. And yeah, it's been great ever since. So we've had the opportunity to really get to know each other and start our own assisted living developments and really push forward in this space together, as well as partner on his current opportunity. So pretty stoked about that.
All right. So I just want to remind everyone, Aaron is in school. So if you want to connect with him, but his YouTube channel and his LinkedIn profile is here. So if you want to know more about the residential assisted living. And so Aaron, kind of maybe people in school may not know what you've been working on. So you've kind of slightly pivoted, right, from maybe the single family homes, long-term rentals, and maybe introduce why you are pivoting towards residential assisted living.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I know a lot of folks. If anybody here is from ORAT, good to see you. I have been a member of that community. I think I think I was one of the first members to join, but just same as one of the first members to join Charlie's community too. But my background, my wife and I, we bought 8 rental properties across 3 states over the course of 3 years, and we managed them remotely. That was the kind of foundational phase of our real estate journey, and we learned so much. We built a ton of great building blocks, both financially and skill wise. And among those rentals, though, 2 of them were leased to assisted living operators. That's a strategy maybe Charlie and I can unpack a little bit. But basically, there were single family homes that instead of finding a family or a individual tenant, we were on commercial style 5-year triple net leases with a company, adults with developmental disabilities. So actually we bought our first rental, and then 4 months later, our agent brought us this deal to buy 2 homes at once that were in that situation. So we went from knowing nothing and not having any experience as rental operators to all of a sudden we had this very unique situation. Truth be told, we didn't think a whole lot of it. It was an incredible, they were great cash flow, very stable, no vacancy. It was a great situation, but we just kind of chalked it up to we were in the right place at the right time. We had no idea that there was any way to replicate that. We didn't have the relationships. We didn't know anybody in the industry. That was the first time we had ever heard of anything residential assisted living related. So we just kept going on our rental journey, and life took us. We moved a couple times. We had some kids, and so we collected a basket of rental properties and just kept going down that path. But it wasn't until Charlie's partner, Dr. Alex Schlow, cropped up on one of the podcasts that I listened to, and he started talking about this lease to operator residential assisted living. And I was like, my eyes lit up. I was like, oh my God, that's what we've been doing for the last 5 years. Unknowingly, that was what that strategy was called. And we kind of looked, backwards. We had dealt with a few speed bumps with our rentals, and we had kids, and life was getting busier. Our tolerance for dealing with some of the landlording shenanigans that I know many of you are familiar with, our tolerance was reduced, right? So this idea of having like a professional service company that's doing something that's impactful for the community inside of a real estate play spoke to us on many levels. So yeah, Charlie's partner, Alex, that was the first time I had really heard other people talk about it. And so I rushed to join their group, and the rest is history, as they say.
So Charlie, why don't you maybe talk about this group that Aaron mentions? And I know, is your journey kind of the same way you started in traditional long-term rentals, and now are you strictly in residential assisted living facilities?
Yeah, I started in small multifamily about 8-9 years ago, and then pivoted to short-term rentals for cash flow when the getting was good, and when the getting started to suck, I learned about basically the same thing Aaron said, residential assisted living, where we were leasing out homes to this business. So these homes are a little bit more unique than a regular single family home, more bedrooms, sprinklers, and other things to pass licensing criteria, which also means you can rent them for double the market rent. So you can imagine it's one of the few things that can cash flow in today's market with interest rates the way they are, prices the way they are. So we started doing that, and we started a Facebook community to find more operators to lease homes to, because we were like, hey, we've got homes, we need more operators, and we want to do this everywhere, not just Phoenix, where we started. And it quickly took off, and we have 15,000 members in that group, and we realized that there just wasn't a really good education platform for residential style assisted living in a mastermind community type way. So we went ahead and launched that and said, we're going to build one kind of like a community we've been a part of, the War Room. We launched it, and a whole bunch of folks joined, including Aaron, right from day one. And we've grown it to over 80 members and over 20 experts from across the industry. And we went ahead and launched a podcast as well. And so we are in kind of a phase of just all in on assisted living. We learned about the demographics. We learned about what's happening in the industry. We realized that this is the best opportunity we're going to have in real estate and business for the next 2 to 3 decades. So we just kind of went all in, and we're trying to get ahead of the silver tsunami, so we call it, to be ahead of that wave, both in terms of education and in portfolio building. So we are on the hunt for opportunities, as well as under contract to develop some assisted living, memory care, luxury homes as well in Virginia. So I pretty much ignore the short-term rental stuff now. I'm trying to offload the rest of that portfolio so I can focus and go all in on assisted living.
Well, let's offloading. Maybe we can find some people that are interested in those later. But so you're talking about, are you looking for facilities and changing them to fit what you guys are looking for? Or I think, Aaron, you're doing a ground up build though, right? So is that the strategy? Yeah.
So we're teaming up with Charlie, and I know Charlie also has a similar project that he's working on with Alex and Luke. But to do a ground up developer called Tomball in the northwest part of Houston. But we have 7 acres of land under contract, and we're building 2 10,000 square foot, 16 bedroom, 16 private bath memory care homes. So memory care is, one of the more advanced levels of assisted living. It is a higher level of care, and it's also a higher price point. So these are luxury build, purpose built, right? So we're not taking a house and adding to it. We're building from the ground up specifically for memory care. We're following a model that we are working with a mentor. His name's Brett Shotkavis. He runs a program, and he's kind of coined this term memory care mansion. So it's that luxury build, but it still feels like a home. So it's plenty of space and amenities, but it doesn't feel like a facility. We kind of have inner, what do you call it, inside joke. We try not to do that when we're talking about residential assisted living homes, because the whole purpose is to create a home-like environment so people don't feel like they're holed up in a hospital-like setting, in the later years of their life. That can be really depressing for families. It can be really depressing for the person who's there and going through it. It's just, we've experienced some of that in our own family, and we want to create a antidote to that experience. So that's the route we're going, but there's so much space in between, right? It's these homes we own in Vegas are 4-bed, 2-bath, single-family homes that have 0 conversion. If this operator moved out tomorrow, we could rent it to a family within probably 2 or 3 weeks. The 16-bed, 16-bath mansion we're building, probably not so much, right? So there's a whole spectrum of different ways you can go about it. We're choosing this because it's kind of the business model. If you're going to start up a 7 business and you're going to have staff, it gives us more revenue. There's economies of scale. It really is a business transposed on top of real estate. So you have to kind of start gaming it out of what that would cost to run and how you're going to fund it, all that stuff. The economics just work better in this case. Charlie probably has more to add to that, though.
Cool. We also got Chris Webb here. He's in Virginia, but he says, thanks for being here. He says, how do you see if there is a demand for this in your area?
Yeah, well, the short answer is there's only a couple of markets that are quote unquote saturated. Phoenix being one of them. The rest of the world needs assisted living for one main reason. There's just not enough of it. And you could do that research by looking at demographics in your area and looking at, hey, how many folks are over the age of 65 or over the age of 85? 7 out of 10 of those folks are going to need care. They're going to need assisted living. In-home care businesses are not going to be able to service that need. So you can find all the facilities in the area and look at the number of beds. I looked in my county and it was a massive discrepancy. But it didn't help me convince the county to speed up the rezoning process, unfortunately. So we had to look somewhere else for where we were going to build. But it's the crazy thing is we're already 1 million beds short in the U.S. And so I'm gonna throw a couple statistics at you so you kind of get an idea. There's 10,000 baby boomers a day turning 65, but there's only 63,000 new units coming online every year for assisted living beds. So the discrepancy, the supply versus demand problem is massive. And I see someone's asking what assisted living is. I guess we should define that, Aaron. Assisted living is needing help with 3 or more daily activities of living. So it doesn't necessarily mean skilled nursing. It doesn't necessarily mean memory care, though that's something that Aaron plans to provide, we plan to provide. But generally, assisted living isn't so much the nursing side of it or the healthcare side of it, though you can bring those professionals in to provide that care as needed. Certainly, caregiver staff will be giving regular meds and things like that. Sorry, I went off script and went ahead and answered a question.
No problem. Yeah, I mean, I think I haven't seen that person here before, so it's probably good you answered it. So hopefully they stick around and subscribe and tune in for more episodes. But let's see what else. We have old guy REI stopping by here. So he's in Watsonville. He's probably looking to relocate when his time is to retire, but he might be needing a assisted living home. No, that's he's not that old, but he's a good guy. He's in the school community. But Troy asks, what is the biggest challenge starting up a small residential assisted living facility?
I think there's multiple phases, right? So like what we're doing is ground up development, which in and of itself is its own project and its own challenge. Then there's the actual starting of the business. Each one of those has a ton of challenges and obstacles and milestones you got to navigate. Right now, like if you were to go the ground up development route, like we've already had to deal with rezoning, which we're in Texas, which is very much easier to navigate than most other states. Texas is a pretty business friendly environment overall. A lot of the zoning laws and the navigating individual municipalities is a lot easier. It's, phone calls, even just walking into city offices. So it's a pretty, it's a long process, but it's not rocket science if you have the right checklist and you have somebody especially guiding you through it that's already done it. But it takes a long time. So, one of the biggest challenges is time. Like not many people have 2 years of their life that they can potentially dedicate to going through this process. Ground up development doesn't generate revenue right away. And matter of fact, it's quite the opposite. You have to go secure a ton of debt and raise a bunch of money. So you got money going out long before it comes back in. You got to get people bought into that vision. If you're raising money and trying to bring investors on board, do they believe in the business plan? Do they believe in the vision? Do they believe in the operators? So that's all before you even open the business. Once you get through all that, then there's the actual staffing, right? Staffing is one of the biggest concerns. I know Charlie will have some thoughts on that too, but hiring and retaining good staff. These are unfortunately not really super high paying roles. Like the caregivers in most homes, in some areas and in some operators, they pay not that much higher than minimum wage. We're planning to pay significantly more than that, but at the same time, these rates and you're not employing a physician to do the day-to-day taking care of residents. So finding and fine tuning your staffing plan, like the payroll is the biggest expense by far. So getting control, getting the right team in place, and then also like managing, every time you churn through staff, the cost to onboard somebody can eat up a big chunk of your profit too. So you got to just be really tight on how you run your payroll and your systems. Charlie, you have anything to add?
Yeah, once you figure out the staffing thing, the other piece is sourcing residents, right? So that can be a challenge for a lot of folks. It's crazy how many existing homes out there are run by baby boomers and don't have an online presence, or basically, and they're depending on placement agencies who do this for a living, which can get very expensive because they're going to charge you 100 to 120% of that monthly rate or monthly rent that a resident will pay, which the median for assisted living in the U.S. is between $4,500 and $5,500 currently. It's projected to greatly increase over the next decade because of just the supply-demand problem. And in memory care, you can add typically 40%, 50% on top of that, maybe even double in some markets. Assisted living prices can vary greatly. There are places like California and Washington where assisted living rates are much higher than they would be, let's say, in Georgia or in Texas.
Before we get into Chris's question, my question would be, is there like a lot of liability, or how does insurance work for these type of properties?
Yeah, well, let me first kind of break down some of the different model options, because we're getting a lot of questions here, and I think it can be confusing for folks. The way Aaron and I both started is we bought homes and we leased them out, kind of like a triple net lease to an operator. Commercial lease, 5 years, even though it's a residential home. Okay. That's one way to approach this model. It's certainly a more passive way to approach it and still be part of the assisted living kind of growth. The other way is the opposite. You could start the business, but rent the property if you don't have the cash to also purchase the property. Then you can buy both. You can buy a home that has an existing business. You can buy a home, renovate it, and start a business. You can buy a home that's already ready to go and start the business. And you can develop from the ground up. So that's just kind of a snapshot. And with that development from the ground up, you can choose to lease it out, or you can start your own operations. There's even larger companies that will come and manage assisted living, bigger communities, if the cash flow is high enough to do that, kind of like a property manager. So there's companies out there that do that as well, where you still own it all, but you're paying someone to manage and run it. Now, the way Aaron is going to address that, it's a little bit small for that. He's going to bring managers in-house that will all work for him to still manage all their operations. So Aaron's not going to be, wiping butts on a daily basis, because that is part of the job. So a lot of people are asking, what rates and things like that. So it depends on which part of the business you want to touch, right? Do you want to be part of the operations? Because it's a really, it's a legit thing. You're taking care of people. People's lives are at stake. It's not just rental real estate anymore if you're on the operations side. However, then you get to benefit from a much higher potential cash flow, a lot more expenses too, because you got to pay for staff 24/7. But now you get to collect the $5,000 to $10,000 a month from each resident for that home versus just monthly rent. So there's a lot of parts and pieces to it. Anything I missed, Aaron?
Well, I just want to make one correction. I have 18-month-old twins, so I still do wipe butts on a daily basis, but not in the context you were talking about. But no, I think understanding those models is important too, because especially knowing kind of the audience we're talking to here, most line up in your life circumstances, start a 24/7 care business that has tons of complexity and, like you're alluding to, a liability risk. It's of course riskier to run a business than not run a business. But at the same time, some of the ways that liability, first of all, you have general liability insurance on the business, and you also have a normal property level insurance. So you're double insured. Everything's insulated through the entity that you form, as long as you form it correctly. And you're also not actually providing medical services in at least in our model. You're contracting out with home health companies, hospice. The actual medicine is being administered by an RN. Typically, it's counted out. So your caretakers are typically licensed and have a training on how to dispense medicine, but they're not the ones measuring out the doses. So your actual kind of, there's not a ton of malpractice when you're not actually providing those services. So of course there's liability, there's risk with any business, and it is a care business. You have, in our case, it's going to be 32 beds across 2 homes. That's a lot of people. A lot of things can happen, but there's systems in place to address those things. These people, it's known when people come into this type of business that people are in ailing or declining health conditions, and in many cases this is people's last stop, so they will likely pass away in the home. That's understood, and so it's really just about managing the different risks of the day-to-day tasks you have to do. And the good news is, if you're leasing to an operator, those concerns are the operator's concerns, not yours. So as long as you do a good job of vetting the people that are renting your home to run their business, then a lot of that, like your liability for the most part, ends with the property level, the same way that it would if you were renting to a family.
All right, I guess Beatty, I hope you're still here. Sorry you missed Charlie's breakdown of what residential assisted living is, but maybe quickly then Aaron can give his version or maybe his description of what residential assisted living is. And hopefully, Beatty, you're here and you can hear this one.
Yeah, so I mean, I talked earlier about the distinction between residential and like a commercial, big facility, right? Part of the residential label is meant to describe the fact that these are typically residential homes that are not only in a smaller physical setting, but they're built to feel like a home too. It's assisted living is different than a skilled nursing facility, right? So the level, like I was kind of just saying in my previous answer, the level of medical care that our employees will be giving is different than that of a nursing home. So I think that's kind of is assisted living are people who need help with daily living activities of varying levels. It can be, just a few things, or it can be everything through acute memory care, which is a very specific, type of support that those people need. So that's kind of the line in the sand as I understand it, and hopefully that didn't conflict with Charlie's answer.
So let's say, so for Chris's question, let's say they're gonna go down Aaron's path and do more of a ground up. As far as like zoning, local and state laws, like how important or how deep do you have to dig to figure out what kind of laws you have to follow or what kind of permits you need?
This is going to be fun because Charlie's looking in Virginia and we're in Texas, and I'll be interested to hear the difference in our answers, because we've both been doing a lot of the same motions, but probably very different timelines and levels of complexity. One of the most friendly states in the country to do something like this, not only start a business in general, but for residential assisted living. The laws are pretty clear cut. There's a defined process. And as long as you follow the rules and build things to spec, you should be able to, continue to move the ball down the field. But, the biggest one is anything zoning related. So my wife is the one who drove this part of the process, but she worked with the city of Tomball. We studied their economic development plan. Most cities will publish, a 5-year or 10-year vision. You can go look, like, what do they want in their city? So we found out, that they were trying to rezone this area of town into either commercial retail or commercial multifamily. So we applied for that specific type of licensing, and then we brought our business plan to the city council. She went 3 different times and presented. The first one was a presentation to introduce the idea. Then there's another meeting where they review it as a council, and they also give the community a chance to come and either support or object if they do. And then they literally, this is like an old school thing. They actually are supposed to literally take out a advertisement in the local newspaper, the physical newspaper, and then they're supposed to notify anybody in the surrounding lots of, hey, this person is applying for this purpose to build this type of business. And then those neighbors have an opportunity to object if they do as well. So we went through, it was like 3 of those meetings. And then at the end, thankfully in our case, like, what we're doing is not controversial. And there was the city council members went and they even called around local facilities and homes. And they were asking, like, is there a demand for this? What's your price point? So they did their own due diligence to say, does this fit our vision? Is there a demand for this? And, like, do we believe in the people that are bringing this to us? And so you really have to kind of sell yourself this in the same way that you got to get investors on board. But in this case, it was the city. And thankfully, you hear Charlie's, if anything's different in that front.
Yeah, there can be a lot to it. Every state, unfortunately, is different. And so you have to do that homework. To play the game, you have to know the rules, just like sports, right? So you have to know what those are. But luckily, your taxpayer dollars go to paying the folks that determine what all the rules are. So there's kind of two big buckets. One is the licensing for operating an assisted living business. And then there's the locality zoning and building code requirements. Sometimes those can intermingle. The state may have building code requirements as well as the locality may have some additional ones. So every single location is different, unfortunately. Luckily, there's tools that make it easier, and there's a website that a state agency for every single state that determines licensing, which is helpful. And then you'll have to go to the local zoning and planning department when it comes to those codes, whether the land can be used for that. So there's those two buckets. And in Virginia, it's even more complicated because if you have up to a certain number of residents, it falls into one agency's bucket for licensing. If you have more than that, it falls into a different agency's bucket for licensing. So you have to be aware of all those rules. Sometimes it pays to hire a consultant, which is what we do to help us dig through those rules. ChatGPT can only get you so far, though it is helpful to go pull down all the materials you can find from the agency websites and build your own assistant to help you guide you along the way. But highly recommend that you bring in some consultants that are smarter than you on zoning or building code and licensing to help you with that piece.
So are those resources provided like if they join your guys' group and things, or is it like you're saying they have to go out on their own and kind of find their own resources?
Yeah, what we do is we coach you on how to figure it out and who to talk to. And so that's, one of the first things you'll do is you fill out this 20-page workbook. And by the time you're done, you know where all those parts and pieces of information are. You know all the key players. You know who to call. And then we bring experts in. We have 6 live calls a month, and we bring experts in from across the industry, including those types of consultant folks that can advise and know already the rules and how to get the information if that's a path that people want to go down. We never want to tell people they have to, but we want to give them the option to kind of accelerate their success if they want to.
So you're a lot further along than Aaron. So Aaron can maybe answer after from his short time doing this. But Charlie, maybe what is like the biggest misconception you had from when you started until now in residential assisted living?
Yeah, I'll start with, I think Aaron might be further along than us, but we can come back to that. The biggest misconception, goodness, probably that it's this easy business and it's somewhat passive. Unless you're doing the lease to operator thing, which even that's sometimes not passive because operators can fail and then you got to find a new person to replace them. It's probably that, this is easy. I could just take my whatever 4-bed, 2-bath house with a basement and turn that into assisted living home and rent it out. And no, that's probably not going to work out the way you anticipate. So there's a lot of folks that are kind of jumping in thinking that it's a giant money grab when really it's a hard business if you're doing the operations side. And you have to be prepared for that. You have to be willing to put the work in. But if you are an action taker and you are willing to put in the work and you have, you see the value in this, whether you have been in healthcare or you've had loved ones that you had to put into a terrible facility. And there's kind of like a push, an emotional push from it. Then you could really do great things and do very well.
Aaron, for you,
I want to piggyback off of that because I think it's people see this on the top of Brandon Turner's lists and Bigger Pockets. Like, what are the top 2 or 3 cash flow, real estate subsections in 2025 and 2026? And it's like residential assisted living is usually either 1 or 2, maybe 3. And people see that and then they kind of turn their head towards it. Understandably, they want to learn more. And what I would say is that I agree. It is probably the highest cash flow potential, whether you're doing lease to operator or whether you choose to start your own business. Those are 2 very different things, but they both have very high financial upside. But the barriers to entry are way higher than even something like a co-living, where that also has its own complexities and regulations, and you got to learn how to work with contractors and use third-party software like maybe PadSplit or something like that. Like, I'm not belittling the work that it takes for those strategies, but what I would say the biggest difference is the regulatory and licensing hurdles, most of which I think a lot of people aren't they don't have the timeline or the flexibility to be able to wait 6 months or 8 months or whatever it may be to get one of these things off the ground. So misconception is probably level of effort and the right. This is not fast, but it is effective. It's concentrated. If you spend 12 months, doing what Charlie and his partners have done, find a home that can be renovated and get it license ready and place an operator in it. And if that takes you 12 months, but at the end of it, you're getting $5,000 a month in net cash flow that's mostly passive because you lease to an operator on a triple net lease, like you're trying a little bit harder because it's such a concentrated return compared to what you might otherwise be doing.
Yeah, can I add just a little more? Yeah, I mean, of course, every single home is different, and that's why we built a calculator so you can analyze each one separately. But like Aaron said, yes, it's a lot more work, but 5-ish lease to operator homes, and you can achieve the typical financial freedom goal of 10K a month in cash flow, right? Or with one great single residential assisted living home, one house that you're also operating the business, you can also cash flow that or more, right? Aaron's homes are going to do somewhere above 30 grand a month in cash flow, which is kind of wild, right? And he's building two. So I've never seen any residential real estate or any piece of real estate for that matter, where it can be possible to take down one and achieve, financial freedom in most people's definition.
Flavio has a question. He says, "Do you guys have to modify the bathroom and wider doors?"
That it's a lot more complicated than that, but yes, you want your home to be, even though it may not be a state requirement to be ADA compliant, you just need to be thinking about how do I provide the best care possible for every resident, and depending on the home, keep eyeballs on all of them at the same time, right? So like a memory care home, you want it laid out in such a way that you know where everybody is at the same time. In order to potentially be able to charge more, you might want private bedrooms with ensuite baths. Obviously, they need to be roll in, roll out showers, right? You don't want to have bathtubs. That's not going to be helpful. Wider doorways to make sure we can get walkers and stuff through. You typically want laminate plank, like luxury plank vinyl. You don't want carpet because that's a tripping hazard. You got to be thinking about this because, grandma breaks a hip, she might die. And so there's a lot of little parts and pieces and ways to improve these homes that has been kind of discovered over trial and error over time. So we're at a phase now where if you do it really well, you can protect your residents very well. You can take care of them very well. You can be very efficient with your caregiver ratios and really optimize the home.
What about like food? Do you guys have like industrial sized kitchens in there, or do you guys like outsource the food being delivered, or how do you guys handle that?
We will have a full size kitchen with commercial size fridge and like the ability to cook for a house of 16 with no problem at all. And we'll have a chef that's there 5 days a week, and it'll be all fresh ingredients. That's part of, we're building something inside a premium price point. Part of that is because it's a luxury building. It's going to have a great staff to resident ratio, and we're going to be providing that fresh food. If anybody's ever visited a family member or has heard of somebody going to visit their family member at a nursing home or a hospital, it's like they're eating off of a cafeteria tray with one of those plates that comes with the little plastic cover on it, and that doesn't really feel like you're at home, right? So part of what we're trying to do is like we'll shop in bulk, right, at groceries, but we'll get fresh foods, fresh ingredients, and make chef prepared meals and even when the chef's not there, right, they'll prep and there will be a very thought out meal plan for all the residents.
I want to kind of circle back to, I know, Charlie, you mentioned earlier that maybe you felt Aaron is ahead of you, or maybe, well, why did you say that?
Well, it's weird. We kind of started these journeys. Maybe we were a little ahead of Aaron in some ways, but Aaron is now a few months ahead on his development. So it all depends on how you look at it. But certainly, we've both learned a lot from each other And it's been really great to just continue to bounce ideas and learn and grow and share networks and continue to keep moving forward and taking action.
And you mentioned you're possibly looking to liquidate your short-term rentals and whatnot. So Aaron, is that your vision too? Are you looking to maybe exit completely out of your long-term rentals and just focus strictly on residential assisted living?
I love this question because I think most people assume that I just am against single family rentals or that I don't believe in it anymore. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I really do think that single family long term credible asset to buy and hold for the long term. We've sold a few of our rentals, but they were the ones that we could take or leave. They weren't the high performing ones. They weren't the two that are leased to residential assisted living operators. So we now have, the rentals that we're holding are all the ones with the best interest rates, the highest cash flow. And for me, those, in my mind, barring something unforeseen, those would be forever holds. Now, there have been plenty of unforeseen things that have happened in the last few years, so that's why I give that disclaimer. There could be something that comes up where it's always about opportunity costs. If those houses, if we could take that equity and turn it into a better opportunity, then maybe. But for now, like I think it's what do you call it? I think Zuber calls it pruning, right? You keep the ones you like and you get rid of the ones you don't.
I love
What about
that.
you,
Yeah.
Charlie?
Yeah. What, sorry, how much? So, okay, Charlie, how many short-term rentals do you have and what markets are they in? Maybe if anyone listening is looking to acquire short-term rentals.
Sure. One is it's called Home Sweet Dome. It's a geodesic dome, super cute, in Black Hawk, Colorado, kind of up in the mountains, just outside of Denver. Does pretty darn well. It's on the market right now. It just went to MLS. We had a contract that fell through, and now we're hoping to pick another one up. So there's some showings going on right now. If that strikes your fancy, better get on it. And the other that I have currently is called Nash Vegas. It's a townhome in Nashville, about 3 years old, and it's got a Vegas theme. So every bedroom's a different casino from Vegas, something that Aaron knows a lot about. The garage is refit as a casino with poker and shuffleboard and all sorts of cool stuff, some cool murals. So that one's for sale, but I'm also looking to optimize direct booking, so I don't necessarily have to sell it. So,
I thought
yeah.
you had a buyer right now, Chris. He said, "I love Blackhawk." He said it's too pricey for me.
Come on, man, $650, no big deal.
What else was I gonna? I was gonna say, shoot, I forget. Oh, I know. As far as like, everyone always worried about regulations and policies coming down. What do you guys see for like the next 3 to 5 years? Is there going to be policies that might put a wrinkle in what you guys are doing, or more favorable policies coming down possibly?
Well, during the presidential election, both candidates talked about tax benefits to subsidize or to make it easier on families who are paying for senior care, as in the home or potentially for assisted living. So the politicians know that this wave is coming. The demographics are out there that shows you like, the population over 85 is going to double, and there's a massive multi-trillion-dollar gap in what needs to be built as opposed to what is being built in terms of beds for assisted living. So you're going to see the supply-demand gap continue to widen, despite all our efforts to launch more homes. It's going to widen. It's not possible to kind of catch up. So rates are going to continue to go up, which is good for us. There's still going to be a squeeze and a difficulty in hiring caregivers. I think there's not enough of them in the industry. So that'll be an interesting thing to kind of work around and figure out as we go along. Any other trends to add, Aaron?
Well, I would say too that part of the model that a lot of nursing homes use in some of the bigger facilities is that they rely heavily on Medicaid reimbursement.
Mm.
And what we're doing is a private pay model. So to your point, there's plenty of dimensions of regulatory risk, and we would rather have as few of those as possible. Obviously, people have to be able to afford that. It does remove one business risk. And when we've got investors on board, we got bank debt and all that stuff. The last thing we want is for something to change in that program and then half the residents in our home all of a sudden cannot afford the rates that they've committed to. So I share that not necessarily as a regulatory risk, but that's just one way we're approaching to not have to be dependent on that. And then I think Charlie said it a couple times in a couple different contexts, but when the rules are established and you know what they are, it's that much easier to operate. It's kind of interesting how some states, like, they don't even have a framework for how some of this stuff works because there's just not even enough houses yet. So I don't know. It's a lot of people. I think this same conversation has been had about short-term rentals, where you go and maybe you know that today you could get one license, but that established experience with short-term rentals, like, that stuff might change. Same could be said for assisted living. If a state doesn't, or a municipality doesn't know how to deal with it yet, then it could, in theory, change pretty quickly as they learn and gather more data.
So yeah, like I said, this is Aaron's LinkedIn profile. So if you want to connect with him and know more about residential assisted living, go reach out to him. But he's also in the school community, so message him there. Go check out Aaron's YouTube channel. So Flavio says yes, he likes this model, and Carlos is here. So Carlos asks, how does someone get started? Check out Charlie's group. Where can they? Do you have a link for that? Where can people maybe connect with you there, and if they want to know more information? But maybe a quick, what would be the first place maybe someone should look at to get started, I guess, or help them?
I would say the quickest, easiest way is through our podcast. So a free podcast, of course, on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube, called The RAL Room, the RAL Room, Assisted Living Podcast. That's a great way to get started. From there, you can kind of jump to learn more about the mastermind. We also run two of the biggest residential assisted living Facebook groups on Facebook. So if you go to facebook.com/group/residential assisted living, that's us. And you can learn more about the RAL Room at theralroom.com, or check out the podcast there. So yeah, happy to, lots of free resources. Check all those out first before you jump in. And we also host webinars, so you can see those on our Facebook group. So free webinars and stuff like that. So we'd be happy to have folks on those. And yeah, glad we could make it today.
Yeah, Carlos. If not, I know you're in school too, so if not, you can always reach out to Aaron there and message him and then pick his brain. Hopefully Aaron, actually, hopefully Aaron gets further along, trying to see if we can get him on stage at the ORAD event next year to be one of the speakers. But maybe we can get Charlie on stage. If not, maybe we can get someone from the residential assisted living space on board. I think a lot of people would be interested in that. But let's see what else. Anything else you guys want to talk about as far as this space or what you're working on? Or
I think you asked earlier, how do Charlie and I know each other? What's our working relationship? So I am a very proud founding member of the RAL Room. It's something, I don't work for the RAL Room. I'm a member, participating, gotten so much value from them. They not only kind of enabled and empowered us to residential assisted living, but it's through the network that we built there. We have a pod that meets every week and supports each other. Like, we're all growing together, and this vision evolved, largely as a result of the resources we got when we joined. But we're also grateful that we're able to partner with Charlie and Alex and Luke, and they are helping us. We're in the middle of raising capital for our development project. So we've got opportunity built. We're now, we have, as of this recording, a little over $1 million in the bank, and we've got a little ways to go. But we're open to accredited investors, and Charlie and the team are helping get the word out, and we're having lots of conversations and bringing people along. One benefit of that, though, that I just like to call out is people that are interested in this business model, investing in a deal and seeing, how the business plan comes to life over a period of time without having any of the operational burden. That's how I learned. I invested in some apartment deals. I invested in a short-term rental fund. Like, being a passive investor has been very educational for me. So for folks that are interested in seeing this kind of development model, there's an opportunity there to get some exposure to that. But grateful to Charlie for the resources he's provided to Andrea and I, and off the ground.
And I know there's been talks about it. I don't think it's changed yet, but maybe one of you can explain what it takes to be an accredited investor.
So the parameters are relatively the two main gating factors are typically your high net worth. So if you have $1 million plus net worth, excluding your primary homes, that's usually the kicker. A lot of us are watching this and in the community together are rental property investors. So good news is you probably got uh, some liquid net worth, or not liquid, sorry. So you have some net worth outside of your primary. And so that's one bar is if you are not married, if you're single, having over 200,000 in annual income for the previous 2 years with the expectation of making the same this year. That's one. So basically just a consistent high income. Or if you're married filing jointly, then the bar is 300,000 in household income. There are a couple other ways you can become accredited. I think there's certain like licenses and stuff, but it's rather obscure and uncommon. But Charlie, did I miss anything there?
No, I think you nailed it. There's a couple of outlier cases, but yeah, you should,
Yeah,
basically you'll
I
know.
know there's
You'll
talks
know
on
if you
changing.
are.
Yeah. um, yeah, I had a question though. Was there like a moment that you guys dealt with a tenant that's why with one of your rental and that made you maybe want to pivot to this space? Or like Charlie, I think you touched on it too, maybe a personal attachment to something that happened in your life that said this is a need, or you had a family member maybe. So maybe you guys can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think Aaron's got a good story there, but I mean, everybody has a family member story, right? My grandmother was in a really gross facility. I can remember it because I was standing in the room she was in with another person, which doesn't seem very, very nice and private, but it was gross. It smelled in there. But I was standing in the room when 9/11 kicked off, and we could see the plane and the TV, and the World Trade Center on the screen. So it's hard to kind of forget that moment and that facility. And it was just gross. And it was like, this is not, I hope that I don't have to put my parents in one of these and that I don't end up in one of these. But yeah, more to your point. No, it wasn't necessarily like a big dynamic shift. It was more of a slow one. Like, oh, wait a minute. This is like one of the only asset classes that really work right now. Oh, look, the demographics are really interesting. And then it became a culmination of, holy shit, we can make money while making a massive impact on people's lives. I mean, yeah, getting single family housing or being a slumlord, that's okay, right? Okay, you're housing people, that's all right. Short-term rentals seems nice till you have those guests just come in and wreck your properties, and you're like, why do I do this, right? In assisted living, you're just worrying about what time is bingo, right? And does Mildred want pancakes for breakfast or eggs, right? And so the problems are a little different, and the clientele is totally different. So you're now providing what's so much needed to seniors and their families at a level of care that's hard to find. Really, these residential homes, you can provide a higher caregiver ratio, better care in a luxury environment than they would get in a nursing home. So it's really kind of mind-boggling how we can move forward and build wealth, build cash flow, and build something beautiful for seniors and their families.
Aaron, so it sounds like you have a or a good story on this or pivot moment or whatnot.
Sorry, was the question about whether we had bad tenants that made us want to flee the landlording world, or bad experience in the nursing home environment?
No, if like maybe what made you look to pivot? Was there a moment like that you had like you said, a bad experience with tenants and you're like, okay, this may not be I don't want more long-term rentals maybe, and I'm looking for a different asset class. Or was there like a moment like Charlie's talking about, sitting with a family member and whatnot, and we can provide better service?
Yeah, kind of a combination of things. So I mentioned my wife. So her father had early onset dementia, when diagnosed when she was 19, passed away when she was 26, and he was in a big, smelly nursing home that was, um, all the staff was over sterilized hospital-like environment. It was just super depressing. And so I think she carries that experience and wishing could have been something better for him, like very deep in her heart. And that's fully behind the project we're working on now. So it's great because I have my background and interest in real estate and numbers and business operations and all that stuff, and then she's got the 100% fire from her heart behind it. So that's one, experience on that side. From us, I mean, it's interesting. I think anyone who's heard me talk before, like, we have 3 young kids, and we were self-managing everything before, even remotely. Everything was kind of fine until, you know how it goes. Sometimes there would be a 5-month stretch where we'd hear from nobody, and then all of a sudden in 6 weeks we'd have 5 or 6 capex things or random tenant drama pop up at the same time. Both, so I have 3 kids, but one set of twins. Both times we were in the hospital delivering and bringing our children into the world is when our tenants randomly chose to have some senseless, nonsensical drama and call us, right? Like, late at night as we were delivering our children. And I think that was a bit of a tipping point where, at least self-management we wanted to get out of. And so at the end of the day, though, we really looked back after 5 years of rental property ownership, and we said these 2 properties that are leased to assisted living operators and anything else, way lower headaches. You're providing a service to society. Like, objectively, we would much rather do that than deal with, some of this other drama and whatnot. So it's not that I don't believe in single family. It's that I think we've identified something that has higher upside and also has a different type of contribution to society that resonates a little more core with trying to do, with the impact we make.
Awesome. So Casey has tuning in. He's currently in California, but he's looking to relocate to Vegas. He's in the school community. So Casey, you can always reach out to Aaron for more information on what he's working on. But Casey asks, how much minimum to invest with your development, Aaron?
Yeah, so our advertised minimum is $50,000. We're not going to go around saying this, right? But for friends and family and people, especially other investors who are just interested in learning more about residential assisted living, we'd be willing to be a bit flexible on that. Just reach out to me. Like, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Even if you just want to chat and like learn more about residential assisted living, I love having those conversations. It's made a huge impact in my journey. And so I'm not going to try and sell you anything or push the investment down your throat. If you want to learn more about it, and even if we talk through our business plan, just reach out, and happy to have a conversation.
Oh, actually, your webinar was yesterday, right?
Yes.
Is there a replay? Is there a replay for how did that go?
It went really well. Yeah, we had the whole team. So Charlie, his 2 partners, we had our mentor Brett. We have another partner that's helping us with clinical operations, and we even had some of our construction team there. So if people want to see like kind of how we put together our team and what each person's doing, yeah, I'm happy to share the replay with the audience too.
All right, cool. Maybe you can post that in school so other people can go check it out. Or if you have the link now, we can throw it in there. But Chris is asking, how do you navigate to find operators around the large operators in your area? Yeah, is that a problem with bigger operators?
Charlie, that's all you, man.
Yeah. No, in fact, they've done some of your homework for you. They've shown you that the demand is there, and they become a great source to, as Brett puts it, steal grandmas, and put them in your home. Because a lot of families discover that environment isn't really what they wanted, or maybe the acuity level is different and they really need more personalized memory care, or they want to put mom and dad in a home that feels more like home, that they really want to come visit them at. So it actually becomes a good source. And it's like everything else, right? Okay, the Starbucks are put in places where there's demand for coffee, right? So those big facilities, the large operators, become a good data point for you, especially if you're going to be one of the only or first residential homes in the area. We found where we're building, there's a bunch of big facilities, but there's no residential style homes. So we know we basically don't have competition. And a lot of folks are going to come over from those bigger box facilities. It doesn't have to be like a negative relationship. You can build a positive relationship with them because they know the same thing. Hey, we're going to have residents that come to our big facility and they're not a good fit. So we can refer them to your home. right? And you may find vice versa, right? Hey, maybe you got a resident that really wants to do swim aerobics, but you don't have a pool. Sorry, right? Like that person's a little too active for our home. You can refer them vice versa.
Yeah, I think another way to look at it too is it seems like to me there's a lot of these places have like a waiting list too, right? So there's so much demand that even if you're going to operate in a market where there's a bigger operator there, you might get some of that spillover or whatnot, or get some of these people that are on the waiting list for these bigger facilities. Um, Chris says, interesting, like a owner financing way to get the customers. I'll have to reach out. So I guess Chris.
I was listening to Charlie and Alex on the Round Room podcast on my way to the office this morning, and they were sharing some stat about there are people putting in deposits like years in advance of when they might need the beds. It's insane.
Yeah, the business model is changing due to demand.
Yep. Flavio says thanks for the value. Yeah. So yeah, I guess this was about an hour, so it's a good one. If anyone has any more questions, throw it in there real quick. We can maybe touch on it real fast. But anything else you guys wanna? Any links? Anything you want to share with anyone? Or
I tried to put a couple links in comment on your YouTube, but for some reason it wasn't working. I'm going to share it with you real quick.
oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I know.
There's the webinar, but yeah, please, guys, I love having these conversations. Charlie's a wealth of knowledge. I know we'd both love to hear from you. Holler at us if you have questions about assisted living, or if you just want to get to know us.
All right, so that link is for the webinar right there, the YouTube link I did.
Yes.
Okay, so if anyone is still here, you can go check out that's the replay of the webinar link. And yeah, this was a fun one. And like I said, maybe try to get your contact information more, and maybe we can get you and Aaron on stage for the ORAD event next year. I think that would be awesome. I think a lot of people would love to know more, get more information on this space.
Absolutely.
All right. So everyone, thanks for tuning in. I will be here tomorrow, same time with Dylan, who had his first closing. He just got his his license. So he had his first closing on Monday. So Dylan, Jack, and Stan will be here tomorrow with me. And then I'm off to Japan. So I'll be out of here for a little while. But thanks for tuning in, everyone. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone.